there's no denying that 2019 has been monumental in terms of women in sport. From the women and girls who conquered at Doha at the World Athletic Champions to Simone Biles who made history at the Gymnastics World Champions. And not forgetting the current teen star regarding sports, Coco Gauff, who did defeat Venus Williams. And on the African continent, it's been the under 17, under 20. Not forgetting landmark decisions being made in Morocco, Sudan, and of course, SA regarding women's football. My name is JANE Dunta, and this is the first episode of Pink BOLA right here on Pink TV. And today's first guest, of course, is the current TD at FAZ, Mr. LYSON ZULU. Follow me as we have a brief chat regarding women's football in Zambia, on the continent, and of course, and beyond. Come with me. Hi TD. I'm good, how are you? I must say that as Pink TV or PinkSport TV would like to say congratulations, on your appointment as a current TD for FAZ.
Thank you very much.
And I must say that you've come at a time when the women's teams, both the under 17, under 20, and of course the senior part have been active. So what was the first impression when they gave you this title as TD for FAZ for the 2019?
When I was appointed as technical director, it was a humbling privilege, I must say, to be the technical director of the Football Association of Zambia. But then also it opened my eyes to what the potential that young people have to contribute to something that they're passionate about. I've been involved in football for a long time. I've played and I've also coached, and I've also been a coach instructor. So it was time that I could be in the driving seat, but obviously not alone. It's not something that can be done alone. It takes collective effort to develop Zambian football. And that's why you see that we have engaged different stakeholders, from parents, different schools and academies, to see how best we can work together to develop Zambian football.
You came in at a time when, most of these different under 17, under 20, and of course senior, when, were preparing themselves for the bigger task ahead. So as you came in as a TD, what was your first target you thought maybe you might bring to the table and of course change the face of Zambian women's football?
What you have to understand is, as a technical director, my main mandate is youth development. So the technical director prepares the future of Zambian football, and the head coach prepares the next game of Zambian football, and you have to distinguish between the two. However, there's a link between those two key roles, in that I work closely with the national team head coaches on talent identification and team selections. But solely for my role, it is to look at youth development and how we can create structures so that there's leagues for both boys and girls, so that we can have better players in the future.
That's interesting, Mr. LYSON ZULU, and I see that you're really, into youth football. But as you can see, the topic is just getting hotter, because we know a lot of issues have happened this year regarding the women's game, both in Zambia, on the continent, and of course globally. For now, we have to sit comfortable and of course discuss further with the current technical director of FAZ, Mr. LYSON ZULU. All right, I guess you were with me, JANE Dunta, on Pink BOLA, and our first guest, of course, is the current technical director of FAZ, Mr. LYSON ZULU. Now, Mr. LYSON, earlier you did mention that your objective was, to tap talent, from a grassroots level, and of course, see to it that most girls have a chance to play, football. But media, we saw a paradigm shift since that we saw now our very own under 17, under 20, and of course, senior trying by means to play in the COSAFA. Now, as technical of FAZ, what were you expecting from these girls?
So like I mentioned, my core focus was the youth development of football, not just for the boys, for women as well. As you might have noticed, straight after coming to office, we had to create an under 17 and an under 20, which was going to compete for the first time in COSAFA. And I must mention also on this show that the under 20 came out with the silver medal, and the under 17 came out with the bronze. But then where did we pick these girls from? We picked these girls from the schools, from the community teams, to create an under 20 and an under 17 national team. But also as a way of talent identification, the idea for the girls is to create a platform where as many girls as possible can play, and hopefully from those leagues we can tap the talent that is good enough to play for the national teams. We have created thus far an under 17, under 15, under 14 and under 10 girls league, which is played at the Barcelona Academy right here on these facilities. So also we're in talks with Football da Fossa, who run a league, on the southern province, eastern province, and also some parts of Lusaka and the Copperbelt, to see how we can adopt those leagues and use them for talent identification and management.
All right. Now you've mentioned that for you, working as a team is key. So other than having stakeholders, which you've mentioned, how has it been received in terms of these guardians? These are guardians or parents who are, taking care of these girls and boys. What has been the response like from their parents?
The response has been overwhelming. So right now we'll be launching a girls' league, a community girls' league, where we'll change slightly the rules of play. It will be 7-a-side, and the goals will be reduced. But the response from the parents has been overwhelming. And also, as you may be aware, we provided scholarships to all the girls that participated in the COSAFA, which means they don't have to worry about their education, and we'll pay for them until grade 12. That takes off some pressure off the parents, and because of the talent of these kids, it means they can now go to school with a free mind. But also that shows that as an association, we want to preach to these girls that, education is just as important.
Lovely. Now, we know that we did send our very own senior team who did take part in this year's COSAFA in South Africa, both at under 20 level as well as senior level. And both sides, came out as second. South Africa, of course, they're still maintaining that powerhouse regarding COSAFA region in terms of women's football. But what do you take from that, from both the under 20 women's as well as our senior women's national team?
I mean, for both teams to get into the final, it's great because it shows that we're making progress. I know South Africa has dominated women's football in the last few years, but it speaks to the standards, that they have in their country. They have a national league, which we do not have, and we're in the process of creating the national league. So the national league will ensure that as many girls as possible will be given a chance to play. But for now, working with what we have, our league is only strong in Lusaka and on the Copperbelt. And hopefully with the many other leagues that we're introducing, we can come up with a national league as well.
I'm glad that you mentioned the National League, because my next question is about not having enough, can I say, leagues in Zambia regarding women's football. We saw a different landmark decision in South Africa, whereby this year they have what they call the Women's National League. And of course, it has attracted a number of, stakeholders, both, on the pitch and of course off the pitch. Now, coming back to our country, we only have 2 active leagues, one in Lusaka and of course one on the Copperbelt. We've heard a cry from other parts of the country, which is very normal, because some have said that it's an equal share in terms of, giving a number of girls a chance to play, because we do believe that Zambia is big, and a number of girls would, have or want a chance to play, for their province, or town or district. So how do you rate the current 2 leagues we have in Zambia, the one down in Lusaka and of course the one on the Copperbelt?
The 2 leagues have made progress over the years, but they're not enough, to be honest, because then it limits the platform where we can pick talent as an association. And also there's a few teams that have been dominant over the years as well. But this speaks to the less numbers that we've had of girls playing football. But the course of that will change as we are setting up these leagues at community level and also at district level. Like I mentioned, we've started for the first time an under 10, 12, 14 and under 17s league at Barca Academy, which has got over 350 girls participating. For us, that is a step in the right direction. And also we have a girls league in Katete and also in Chipata. and also we have one on the southern province. So for me, that is progress that we've made, and hopefully the more girls that we have playing, the better the pool of talented players we can choose from.
What would you say is the criteria used to pick these young girls?
They have to play in a league. The girls have to be playing in a league. If not in a league, they have to be playing, for their school. Like I mentioned earlier, we traveled to the Eastern Province where we picked players from the interprovincial games. And these are the girls that represented Zambia in COSAFA, both under 17 and under 20. So we want to encourage as many girls as possible to play for their schools or in their leagues, and that is where we can pick the talent from. So each province has got what we call the provincial office, the first provincial office. There's what we call the technical provincial experts who are in charge of selecting talent in that province and recommend it to the central office, which is my office. And hopefully the best players can now be given a chance to play for Mother Zambia.
Lovely. You're still with me on PinkSport TV. My name is JANE Dunta, and my first guest on this episode is the current technical director of FAS, Mr. LYSON ZULU. Now, Mr. LYSON, let's just quickly see and hear what the country or the people have to say regarding women's football. Stay tuned because the conversation is just getting started.
To me, I think kudos to the Football Association and the stakeholders for coming on board, for believing and for trusting in our women foxes that we also can contribute to in terms of football in Zambia. And for me, that is good development, and as a country, we are proud of that. So if you go around these communities and these schools, talk about the OIDC, we do have a breakthrough, we do have so many teams in these compounds, and for me the grassroots have really played an important role for the development of football, because we have seen even now the women foxes are going out for instance of Misozi Zulu. Now she's a professional in Kazakhstan. Also too is Barbara Banda and a lot of other girls. So to me it's a step in the right direction, because we have seen now that we are able to export women, and that is really good for our country.
Welcome back to Pink BOLA with me right here on PinkSport. I'm your host, JANE Dunta, and our host is, our guest rather, he's still here, Mr. LYSON ZULU. Now you've heard what, the people are saying regarding, women's football. What do you have to say?
People have realized that we're making strides when it comes to the women's game. Already Mr. George spoke about the fact that we can export talent, in Misozi, Rachel and Barbara to Kazakhstan and Spain. It's a good thing. It's happened for the first time, and it's a very good thing for Zambian football. The more players we can have, the more women players we can have playing in the leagues in Europe, the better for us, because that speaks to the strength of our women's national team. But also, clearly, some of the views have been that there's a lot of talent in the communities. And as far as we have gone to the communities to select some of the best talent, to manage it and hopefully see it perform at the national level.
We've seen that most of the under 17 girls who did take part this year for the first time, in Mauritius, we saw that they were so, good on the pitch, and players, who like Cindy, scoring a brace, a hat trick for a girl at that young age. What are you doing, in terms of them to see that come, 2-3 years from now, that same girl who played in Mauritius can still take part, for the senior team?
So we have a 5-year development plan for the two under 17 national teams, and this speaks to the boys' national team and also the girls. So the team that participated, you'll see it compete in many more tournaments before next year's COSAFA. We have aligned a few friendlies for them, and we are looking at the possibility of one tournament in Europe next year before they go and play in COSAFA. But what this does for us as an association is it gives us a chance to keep monitoring the progress of these young players. And also, you can only develop if you play week in, week out for the young players. The more you perform, the more you play, the better you become. So we want to give as much platform to the women folks to play the game, and hopefully that can speak to their development.
Thank you so much. Now, when it comes to issue with the publicity, of course, marketing, as well as, attendance, in these different stadiums, you find that, of course, it's a well-known fact. We find that the men's game will have more people in the stadium, So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this year's turnout in terms of publicity and, of course, marketing for the women's game in Zambia at the moment?
I think the publicity has been good from our marketing side. You know, the communications office has been working hard to ensure that the public knows when the women national team is playing. But also I would like to appeal to the loving Zambians to turn out in numbers to support the women's games. As we have seen, they are just as good if they are supported. So let's turn out in numbers and support them. And also that will mean that we can have more sponsors coming on board, because, I mean, for people to support the game, they want visibility. And once we can prove as Zambians that we can support the women games by going to the stadium, it means that more sponsors will want to come on board and support the programs that we run for the women.
Now, let's take it, on the continent, on the African continent. We try to shift a bit because this is all about women's, football development. Now, in your capacity as a technical director, as far as well as working with other, FAs on the continent, this year we did see a number of, groundbreaking decisions. In South Africa, a women's league was launched. In Sudan, we did see another women's league for the first time ever. Sudan in Khartoum, they do have now a league. And not forgetting, in Morocco, they had the first ever under 20. So what would you say has been done differently, and what can we, expect 3-4 years from now?
I think the women's game is on the rise, not just in Zambia, but also on the continent and globally. It's on the rise, and people are starting to get more interested in the women game, and hopefully that will see better quality coming out of it. I mean, we just had the World Cup, the Women's World Cup in France, and the quality that was there was just unbelievable. But it shows that even as Zambia, we have what it takes to have players of such caliber who can play at the highest level. And we keep creating these leagues and ensure that more women players can play in these leagues, and hopefully one day play for our country.
So can we safely say that Africa is finally getting it right in terms of women's football? I'm saying so because in our very own country we have three players rather. That's Rachel Kundananji, as well as Miss ZULU, not forgetting Barbara Banda, who plays for ADF Logrono in Spain. And these are the first female players from Zambia who are flying the Zambian flag high. If you look at South Africa, we have Jane, who joined a club in Italy, and not forgetting Tembi Katlana, who also joined a club in Beijing. And in Nigeria, they have another top-notch player, that's Oshola, who plays for FC Barcelona in Spain. So can we say that Africa is slowly getting it right this time around?
I would say so, yes. But also the focus in terms of the women's football, when it comes to FIFA, they've pushed that agenda. They've increased the funding for the women's game, and that will see a lot of more participation by women. What we need is more women playing football. Once we have the numbers, it will be easy to pick the quality from the quantity that we'll have. Marrying
the two events, the World Cup in France, as well as the first ever FIFA Women's Conference, what did you pick from there, and how do you think it will benefit the Zambian women's game back here at home?
It was an honor to be a part of the FIFA Women's Football Conference in Milan, and from there I got to learn a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we have not paid attention to that speak volume to the success that you can achieve at such an international event. There's issues of nutrition, issues of psychology, issues of injury treatment and management, and just preparation in general. The US team played a record number of friendlies before going to that World Cup, and that speaks volumes to the success that they achieved, emerging champions. But also there's a lot of other factors that affect the women game, which were discussed at length at the conference, and also the possibility of introducing, there's also talks of having the World Cup played maybe twice every 2 years, just so that we have more competition. But again, I think that was shot down. But there's a lot of other ideas which are being discussed to see to it that the women's game can improve.
And also, in terms of increment of slot, we saw that South Africa, qualified for the first time, and of course they only won one game, which Tembi Katana, scored the only goal for SA. Can we say Zambia will qualify the next World Cup?
Is there a possibility of qualifying to the World Cup at the length that we are going, at the speed that we are going? I think it's very possible.
And in terms of the women's AFCON, we did see that Zambia did take part rather, in Ghana. And sadly, they did, had a good outing, but to no avail, no title. And now we've seen an increment, at the next AFCON women. Can we say Zambia will go as far as semi-final, maybe final, maybe unlifted?
Well, we've made this stride, we've gone this far for the very first time in history. So there's nothing that is impossible at this point. We can be as good as the best.
Thank you. Now we know that all work and no play will make the current TD down. So just a quick, trivia, Mr. LYSON. Who's the current captain for the Zambian women's team?
Miss ZULU, CR7.
She plays for which team at the moment? Which club?
What's the name of in Kazakhstan, but what's the name of the club?
As PinkSport, please pronounce it properly.
That's where I'll get it wrong, so I won't even attempt.
All right, yeah. The current captain is Misozi. She plays for a club in Europe. Quickly, we know that you've played soccer before, and can we say that you still have it in you in terms of scoring?
Maybe I do.
All right. For now, we'll see if TD can score at least 3 or 4 penalties in 30 seconds. Stay tuned. You're still with me, Jane Dunta, right here on PinkSport TV, as we have a chat with the current TD, or technical director rather, Mr. LYSON ZULU. You can safely say that Mr. LYSON ZULU still has it in him in terms of scoring. He scored 4 out of 4 penalties. Now, can we safely say that we might include you at the under-23 national team?
Oh, that time is gone. That time is gone. But yeah, it was a good practice. Reminded me of the old days. And I, like you said, numbers don't lie. 100% record. Yeah. Took 4 penalties, scored 4.
Scored 4. All right, and now to quickly wrap it up, with me, Jane Dunta, right here with the current technical director at FAZ. Now, what would be your advice for that young girl, young lady who has the passion to play, and they feel demoralized either by society, either by their peers, or maybe their background won't, allow them to play soccer for Zambia, or even go beyond us playing, in Europe or, Africa? What would be your message?
Well, to play football at the highest level, one needs to be very determined, very focused, very hardworking, and they need to have a lot of self-belief. So what I want to encourage the girls out there is to keep believing in themselves, keep believing in their dreams, and keep believing in God, because with Him nothing is impossible.
Nothing is impossible indeed, because impossible is nothing in soccer. My name is Jane Dunta, and I've been hanging out with our first guest on this segment called the Pink BOLA, right here on PinkSport TV. Thank you so much for having, for coming. And of course, we do wish your office and of course your future endeavors, the best of luck.
Thank you very much for having me, Jen.
All right. Now, as PinkSport TV, you can, search for us on YouTube. That's at PinkSport TV. And of course, on Facebook, we do have a platform. This has been your presenter, the first episode of Pink BOLA, right here on PinkSport TV. Jane Dunta, signing out.